Welcome to the WoW podcast, where we bring you inspiring stories and insights from our university community. Tune in for conversations about growth, success, and the power of communication in the academic world. So get ready to soar with us on the wings of wisdom.
In today's episode, we welcome John Ellenwood, the head coach of AU's men's basketball team. Since taking the helm in 2009, Coach Ellenwood has transformed the Eagles into a formidable force in the NCAA Division II basketball. With a background that includes an impressive playing career at the College of Worcester and a transformative coaching tenure at Thomas More College, Ellenwood's journey is one of passion, resilience, and leadership. Under his guidance, the Eagles have soared to new heights, achieving over 200 wins, numerous NCAA postseason appearances, and a reputation for excellence both on and off the court. Off the court, Coach Ellenwood is known for his commitment to family and his deep ties to Ohio. Please help me welcome the AU men's basketball winningest head coach, John Ellenwood.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome, John. We're very pleased to have you with us today. We're really excited to have you. This is awesome. Thank you. We got the legendary John to be on the show. So let's get this tough question out of the way.
Sure.
Who is the best basketball player of all time?
Oh, okay. Right now, I would probably lean towards LeBron, and that's going towards a guy who watched Michael Jordan growing up. I think you gotta give LeBron his due. The longevity eventually has allowed him, I think, to for me to say that. It's just he has done remarkable things, and I think Michael Jordan was a great player and obviously changed the world of basketball. You could argue that he's still the best in some ways, especially from the marketing of basketball worldwide. He did a great job, but in player-wise, I mean, I think it has to be LeBron James now. So he's a phenomenal player. Both of them are, but I think that argument when he got the all-time scoring record, I think it finally put that to bed. For me.
Right. Okay. I have a follow-up. If you had to pick one player for a clutch moment in a game, right?
Sure.
Would you choose LeBron or Stephen Curry? And why?
Steph Curry. I'd still probably choose LeBron. They're both great, but the one thing LeBron is that Steph Curry's not is he's 6'9", 240, or actually he's probably like 260 pounds. It just if you need, they both can do phenomenal things, and Steph Curry is unbelievable. But I would probably take LeBron in that situation just because you can put him in more situations to dominate. So
very versatile.
That's why I would answer that that way.
Very good. Well, those were my tough questions.
Okay. Well, it's smooth sailing from here. So
I could jump in here. Talking more about your career at Ashland. I've been following the basketball team for a while, obviously, since I've lived in Ashland a long time. As far as I remember, the men's basketball team just keeps getting better from at least what I've seen, and I know my dad is always talking about how much more he enjoys watching the men's basketball team over the years. Could you talk a little bit about your development or your developing of the AU team and how that process happened?
Yeah. So that kind of goes. That's a good question, but it's a little loaded in terms of the answer. So, and I'll try to keep it brief. When I was a player, and I went to, I played at a high school, Sylvania Northview, and when I was a freshman there, I made the freshman team, and I was really excited about that because in junior high, in 7th and 8th grade, I got cut from the teams. And I never made our junior high teams, which, that every kid seems to make those teams now. But back then, I mean, it was like, 60 kids at a tryout, and I'd get cut in the first round. So when I made the freshman team at Sylvania Northview, Sylvania Northview's varsity at that time had the second longest losing streak in the country. And I 68 straight games. And they kept that stat. It was in USA Today. They would have on the old front page of the sports section, they'd always have like top 25, whatever. And one of them was top 25 losing streaks of high school basketball teams. And we were second in that at the time. And I was really excited to be a part of that team. And even though like the program was awful, by the time I was a senior, we had won the conference and for the first time ever and all that stuff. So I get a scholarship and I went to Lake Superior State for a year and a half, and I was on a full scholarship, and I was part of a team that had won the league and went to the NCAA tournament my first year. But the team wasn't very cohesive, and it was a very much win at all costs type of thing. So after a year and a half, things weren't working out for me there. I transferred to the College of Worcester, and I was part of a very successful basketball program, a coach who really enjoyed the relationships that he had with the players. The guys that graduated from the programs were very successful. They were, it just was a different type of student athlete that you were around. And I really enjoyed that experience after the experience I had at Lake Superior State. And, it's just something where when I graduated, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I got a psych degree, and my mom's a psychologist. It kind of came natural to me. So that's what I got a degree in, but I was like, I don't want to be a psychologist. And I was a pretty good basketball player. And I turned out to be a coach. And so when I got into coaching, I always said, I'm going to make sure that my programs have the same values as the ones that I know that work at the College of Worcester when I was there. And that's kind of how when I became a head coach, I always said that I was going to value and I wanted to play or I wanted to coach guys that similar to the ones that I played with at the College of Worcester. So what wins and what creates winning is just getting the guys that understand the characteristics of it's more than basketball. And that's something to me that it is what has caused success here is I'm able to recruit guys that understand what I call the ABCs, and they understand the priorities in college, which is academics, basketball, citizenship, which is developing your leadership skills, and your social life. You have to have those four priorities in college. Your academics has to come first. You're here to get a degree. And I always say that your degree should lead you to when you're 30 years old. When you're 30 years old, you should be kind of set in where you want to be going in life. You have more direction and all that stuff. Some people know it right away. Some people don't figure it out till they're right around 30. So, but your degree is the most important thing. So I recruit guys that understand the value of a degree. They understand the value of academics. They have to understand the value of wanting to win basketball championships with people that they like. And that's the thing that I try to recruit. I always say I don't want to coach jerks. I want to coach guys that I enjoy going through the good times with and will work with me when things are going wrong. So that's a big priority for me. The citizenship thing is I want guys that want to be leaders and develop leadership. And, that could be in Fellowship of Christian Athletes. That could be through our team. That could be through their majors, something maybe that's not related to any of those things on this campus. But Ashland gives a great opportunity for those things. I want them to explore it. They have to be more than a basketball player. They have to be more than whatever their degree is. And the last thing is social life. I want guys that enjoy life and understand that life is more than basketball. You need to be able to go out there and be part of a university and just make sure that the 4 or 5 years that you're here, that it's a fun time. You develop great friendships for life. And those are the characteristics that I learned at Worcester that have carried over into my coaching career. And, I'm not the best coach in the world, but the one thing I've been very successful at is bringing in good, high quality people that fit those 4 priorities. So there's your loaded answer. So
wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's very impressive. Yeah, like it's more than a game, right?
yeah, It is. It's relationships. And there's a lot of coaches out there who players just, they're like, man, I hate that guy, it's just, my father's advice to me when I got into coaching was, John, just remember these guys, they have to love you. And, as hard as I am on them, and you try, and it's my job as the coach to understand that every guy that's in our program has to be treated as if he was my son. Okay. And that's difficult to do with 25 different guys in our program. But I want to make sure that just because the guy that's whoever our LeBron James is going to get a lot of attention from me, and he's going to, get a lot of, that guy's going to get a lot of attention, but also our manager that is working the scoreboard is just as important to our program and has to feel wanted and has to feel a part of something and has to know that I am proud of them. And that's the thing that I think is hard for a lot of coaches to do, because they get so wrapped up in themselves. You have to serve these young men and helping them and not expecting anything in return. And I want to make sure that our guys understand that. They have to be part of something bigger than themselves. And, I think most of our guys do. But they also have to know that when I make decisions, it's for the best interest of the team, and I care about them, whether that decision helps them or maybe isn't the best decision for specifically that person. And it's not personal, but it's just like, hey, this is best for the family. And I'm going to treat them and be honest with them the way I would with my children.
Very good. Very good. You mentioned the College of Worcester and the impact that experience had on you. And obviously you've led us to incredible performances throughout the years. What do you consider your most memorable moment or season so far?
I think there's a lot of seasons there. I mean, it's just, everything was, there's good years, there's bad years, but it's like, what do you learn in each year? I've had great years where people would say like, well, you got, maybe your record wasn't that as good as it should be, but I'm like, well, you don't know the circumstances in those years. I look at my first couple years here of just making the turn of changing it around, changing the culture, getting the guys in here. But I think the first really successful year we had, was where I'm like, man, we're finally going someplace. Was Brooke Turson's senior year with some other guys, my top assistant. And, if you're asking me what year that was, I'm going to draw a blank on it, but like 2015 or 14 or something like that. And, we started to like win league stuff, and guys were getting really a lot of recognition. We were beating really good programs. So that year was really good. A couple of years later, we won 25 games, got ranked as high as fourth in the country. That was a great year. Made the NCAA tournament for the first time in like 25 years. That was a successful season for us. The following season, we were supposed to be even better, and our best player tore his ACL before the season started, like right before. And, it was a tough start, but by the end of the year, we had made our conference championship game for the first time in the history of our school. We made a conference championship game, and, our best player on that team, that not the kid that got hurt, but he had sprained his ankle in the game before. And we lost on a last second shot to go to the NCAA. We didn't make it to the NCAA, but I was like, man, I was so proud of that team just to overcome that. Right. The next year, we had a year where I was like, this is the best team we're ever going to have. And in a scrimmage, we had one of our players went into cardiac arrest and almost died. And just going through that experience of almost losing a player, and doing chest compressions in an ambulance, shocking him, and, and stuff like that. And just, you don't know if the kid's going to, live or die. And, you got to call his parents and talk to them about all this stuff. And it's just that, I mean, that type of experience was very traumatic. And then, going through that and the success our team had that season without that player. And it's just things like that you remember.
Yeah.
I think the COVID year, I remember we won the league, and I didn't even know if we were going to play a game that year. And it was just, we came together, won an NCAA tournament game, got to the second round. Nobody was in the stands. It was just kind of a weird year, but fun year. But it was very team oriented, very cohesive. It was a lot of fun dealing when everything was shut down and all that stuff. And then, I think not this season, last season was phenomenal. We won the league and went to the NCAAs, and just everything came together with that team. So there's a lot of years, here at Ashland that I'm very proud of. And even this season, we lost our best player, and our guys had to fight through stuff. It's just every year kind of has a different storyline to it.
Right.
But those are a few, and I'm sorry to go on a tangent, but it's just those things are all special to me.
No, these are all great. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing. I know, like that mixture of good moments and difficult moments, but those are the moments that really stick, and it has to be remarkable, either in a negative way or a positive way for us to remember.
Like you said, it's more than basketball. It's about overcoming, and I think that's something that you can't always win a championship just because it's so hard to do that. But it's like, what is the message that your guys are going to take from their sacrifice and sweat and hard work? It's like, what does the season provide them that they can take going forward that they'll remember? And those are the things that I'm most proud of.
Right.
I had a quick thing. So my brother goes to the College of Worcester, and I go and watch the basketball team on there sometimes with him. And I believe it was last year they won the conference or something like that. And I was in the game where they scored like a buzzer beater, and it was crazy, and everyone was and it just got me thinking, because being a D2 athlete and knowing a lot of D2 athletes, it seems that when I interact with Division III athletes, they usually just have those focuses on academics and other things more than I've known with D2 or D1 athletes. Have you found it hard to recruit students that have those values? Is that a very tough thing, or is it pretty readily available?
I think it's usually when you're recruiting Division, because I was a D3 coach before I was a D2 coach, and I recruited D3, right out of school, and obviously I was a D2 player, and then I went to D3. There's some truth to that. Like, I think it was, you don't have the scholarship thing hanging over your head, and some guys, like, man, a scholarship is like holding them hostage because they might not love the game. But everybody that plays Division III loves the game, and because there is no athletic scholarship. So from that aspect, I think, maybe subconsciously, a lot of these people that are Division III athletes are very excited to be a part of a sport, because, I mean, they're paying to be there, I've found that with walk-ons here at our level, where, the walk-ons that come onto our program are very valuable, and some of them earn scholarships and all that stuff, but they love being a part of this team, and they're the ones that give a lot. Even after they leave and stuff, like, their parents are the ones that still give money. They still, are involved in the programs. And I'm not saying our scholarship guys aren't that way, but it's like, man, it's just amazing how that is a part of the D3 culture. But sometimes, like, you'll find guys that are at a scholarship level just because it's paying for their school, and they're like, man, I don't really love this, but I'm good at it, and I'm going to stay with it. And it's just sometimes you're shocked by that, but that's kind of how it is. So yeah, but we try not to recruit players like that, but some guys get burnt out, and that's something that's a real thing. And the guys usually at Division III that get burnt out, they just quit, and and they're still going to school. But the guys at our level that get burnt out, sometimes they stay on just because they got a scholarship that is paying for their school.
So how do you, this is kind of a connected question, how do you foster strong team culture when you have different people, different individuals with different interests.
Yeah. You got to figure out roles of people, and the sooner that you can define roles of how can we be successful and how can you put your efforts towards our success. And not everybody can be the best scorer. Not everybody, but maybe they can
Right.
do something else that can help you win. And it's just, you got to get them defined in roles. The sooner you can do that, the better. Sometimes, though, some guys' roles aren't as defined as they can be, because you're not really sure what they're good at yet. Or maybe two guys are so equal, it's like, man, they got to compete until somebody figures it out. But
Mhm.
I think it's about selling what the team can accomplish if we buy into this. And then I am a salesman. Every day I'm a salesman. I have to sell them on, this is why we're doing this. This is the reason behind this. This is why I need you to buy into this. And they have to trust me on that. Again, that goes back to they might not like the decision that I've made, but they know that I care about them. Okay. And that's the thing that I think goes a long way. And, sometimes we have some really tough conversations, and I
Mhm.
think it's important for them to understand that they have value, and it's important for them to understand that we'll be very successful if they buy into this role, and just sell that to them. And then when they do it really well, praise them until until they're smiling. I always say, because once they're smiling, then they understand that, okay, that is important, that is something that we need, and then they do it better. So you think about just every kid that's on our team that's a scholarship player, especially, was probably one of the best players in their high school's history. And for them to come to high school, or from high school where they're top of the mountain, to where they got
Mhm.
to become part of a team and they got to build their way back up again, that's hard for a lot of guys. It's
Right.
hard for them to understand. So you got to talk to them about a process and about how they develop into something. And it's like, hey, year one, this is where I need you to be. Going forward, we want to eventually get you here. And maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. But you gotta teach patience, which a lot of people don't have anymore. But
Right.
it's just something that you got to sell their role, and you got to make sure they understand it, and they got to understand their value.
Very
So
good.
going along with that real quick, because I can understand why that would be really difficult, but you've had a lot of experience. Do you think that you've gotten better at being able to tell when what the roles of new players are? Like, can you do that quicker now? Was it harder before? How do you
Oh,
feel that?
I think, yeah. With experience, everything gets probably a little bit easier. As a coach, I think probably a question people always ask, like, when I recruit players, people are always like, do you recruit to a system, or do you recruit to just get good players and then figure it out once they get here? And it's somewhere in the middle. Okay. There's some things that I'm like, okay, we're always going to be doing this no matter who we bring in here. But sometimes you get a guy that his talent is, it just shines through doing something. Okay. And then it's like, man, I have to make whatever that talent is, I have to adjust kind of how we get him the ball, or how,
Mhm.
whatever that talent is. And then we have to space and stuff, which is usually the same, off of him, based on how we're going to get him the ball. But you there's some people that are really good about, this is my system, and I'm going to go out and recruit the guys that fit my system. So they know those kids come in, they're going to fit that role. I've not really been that way. I've always just kind of said, like, man, that kid's really good at something that is unique. Maybe it's rebounding. Maybe it's like, the kid's an exceptional ball handler. So, or post play or whatever. And we'll kind of, we don't want to take away what they're great at. We want to kind of feed what they're great at, and then form the team around that greatness. So some guys come in right away and they're able to do it. Some guys, it takes usually about a year and a half though, to figure out college. So and I'm very honest with people in the recruiting process. I'm like, this like college sports is not Disney World. Right? I think a lot of people think, well, I'm great and I'm going to come in here and this is going to be easy because it was easy at high school, or it's not. It's hard work, it's sacrifice. I would love for, and I tell them this, I would love for every kid that comes in here to have the college career that they want to have. Okay. But the reality of it is there's injuries. There's maybe it didn't pan out the way it should. Sometimes it turns out the way you want it to. But most of the time it really doesn't. And that's something that, it's just like, we want that kid to be an All-American. But it's really, there's only like, I don't know, there's like 4,500 kids that play Division II basketball every year, and like 10 of them are All-Americans. Okay. So it's like, right. The reality of it is it's not going to be the Disney World trip you think it's going to be. Okay. And, but it's going to be very rewarding for you in the end. And that's the thing I can tell them is, like, if you stick it out, you'll be happy you stuck it out, because this is really hard. And, it's not for everybody. It really isn't.
Yeah. Very good. I played soccer for a little bit in college. I don't know if you knew that. And Kyan is right now is on the soccer team. So how do you, just thinking back, and that was back in Morocco. So there was a clear division between athletics and academics. How do you stress the importance of academics to your players?
Well, one, if they're not eligible, they can't play, and they took care of it for me. But I have a standard of a 3.0. To me, it's like, if you're a serious student, a 3.0 shouldn't be that hard for you to accomplish. And that's the thing with me. But academically, you have to have a purpose. You might not know what you want to be, but you have to know, like, hey, like I said, you got to think like a 30-year-old when it comes to academics. And what does that mean? Well, I've never been 30, coach. What are you talking about? Well, your parents have, or somebody that you look up to is 30 years old or older. Your coaches, and academically, you have to be able to focus on what the reason is that you're here. I think in high school, a lot of times it's like, I'm taking this class. It's just, I got to do it because it's something I got to take. I deal with this with my actual kids all the time. It's like my daughter in math class is like Superman's kryptonite, and it's just like, she doesn't want to be in it. And I'm always like, there's a purpose behind it. But once they get to college, it's like, man, the people that are teaching you are very well educated in their fields, and it means a lot to them. And I'm like, if you've ever just immerse yourself in the academics that these people teach, you might be amazed at what you're capable of learning. And it's just open up your minds and teach yourself, something new. But this is what I tell them in terms of academics. Okay. The most important thing that you learn in college is how to express yourself. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people get wrong with their academics, is they think, oh, I'm just going to get a degree and then I'm off and running. But no. And well, seeing, how many years have you been you're still a student, and nobody ever stops being a student, but how many years has it been since you've taken a college course? Has it been a while? Or maybe think back to your 20s. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember everything that you learned in your classes? No. Okay.
No.
But I guarantee you learned how to talk to people, and you learned how to write and express yourself. You learned how to express yourself, and express what you learned. And to me, that's the biggest thing that you learn in college, is you should be able to walk into a room and know how to own it. And if you can do that, okay, you're a leader. And if you're a leader, they'll listen to what you have to say. And if they're listening to what you have to say, you better be educated, and you better know how to speak to people, and you better be able to speak the knowledge that is needed. Okay. The other thing is, you have to know how to write. And I learned that at Worcester. We had writing all the time. And I mean, I wrote, and it was something where your confidence in writing is huge. And why do you need to learn to write? Well, because sometimes you're going to have to write something that is very emotional, but writing takes the emotion out of it. You can't argue with words in front of you. You can argue with the person in front of you, but the expression, being able to express yourself through those two areas, face to face and through writing, is important. And if you're going to express yourself, you better be educated. And to me, that's the things that we want to do here at our school. I think we do a great job of teaching kids how to own the room when they walk into it. Okay. I think like Worcester did an outstanding job of teaching people how to write and research and things like that. It's that confidence you have that you learn in college. And then the academic side of it, to me, I don't remember a lot of things I learned in my philosophy courses, but right. I just remember how to argue and debate in those classes. I remember, my psychology courses having to back up my research, and things like that. So, those were all great lessons that I learned in college.
And those communicational skills are helpful regardless of whatever career they choose in the future, right?
No matter what you do, what you do. And everybody's a salesman. Everybody is. And you, like, if it's you're a dad and you're trying to get your kids to eat food in the morning or something like that before the bus comes, you got to be able to get them to eat it. It's like, or if I'm trying to make $1 billion for a company and I'm, trying to sell the idea to you, they're not buying the idea as much as they're buying into the person selling it. And that's recruiting. That's me trying to, basketball wise, just trying to get guys to play hard and buy into their roles and all that other stuff. It's like, they have to believe in what I'm selling them. And that's expression. That's expressing myself to them all the time. And that's the most important thing you can learn at college.
Right. Wow. That's very powerful. That actually could serve as a sales pitch for the WCC. And that's exactly what we do here. All right, Kyan?
Yeah.
We just made that video for Day of Giving, so we could have hired John for that.
I always tell this to anybody that will listen, because they're always like, well, what's everybody doing? It's like they go online. I'm like, look, if you bring parents in, and I know the kid's important, but the parents are the ones that pay the bill most of the time,
Absolutely,
right? And I'm like, if you told them we're going to teach your kid not to be on their cell phone and they're going to be able to talk to someone face to face and they're going to own a room, every parent will be like, that's where I want to send my kid. And that's because everything is online, everything is, but I'm like, teach them how to communicate without the phones. And that's what the world is begging for right now. So, you want to fill up your classes, sell expression. So that's what I've always said.
I love that. Sell expression. I like that.
Yeah. I had something further on the previous question when you were talking about difficulties you had with instilling culture in certain athletes that you've had. When you first arrived at Ashland, what were some other issues that you had or struggles that you had to deal with?
Oh, wow. I always say I wish I would have kept a diary of some of the stuff I've had to deal with here. And there's things that's the beauty of coaching, and the struggle of coaching is just all the lightning strikes that you got to deal with. It's like things that you don't see when you wake up that are going to happen. And it's like, how do you deal with that stuff? And, the stuff when it's even now, it's just, COVID, like how many people saw that coming? It's like, right. How did you deal with the team? When we weren't even allowed on campus, like how did I how do I deal with camaraderie and the workouts? And, honestly, like, F3, the workout group that, we're a part of and stuff, it was, during COVID, I was like, well, that could really work for our team. It's just like developing leadership, and our guys would put together a workout on I don't know, some type of video platform. And then we expected just having different guys lead it while they were home, and they weren't allowed to go into gyms. They weren't allowed to do stuff. And it was just like, they 4 times a week, it was just like, you guys got to do a 45-minute workout. You got to lead it. And I mean, that got us through some stuff, and it developed leadership. And it's like, I think a lot of things that I had to deal with, and honestly, are just things that I look back on. I was like, man, I don't know if I dealt with that right, but I learned from it and things like that. But, I wasn't very successful when I started here. I mean, I was able to turn it around, but we kind of plateaued, and it was year 5. And I just remember I was like, man, I'm going to get fired. And, just dealing with that stuff was that for myself. And it's like, yeah, I gotta, I gotta feed a family. I gotta, I gotta figure out how to do things. And it was like, it's just, it makes you nervous. And, but the struggles are what make you, you know what I mean? And that's something that, I've been able to struggle and be at a place that deals with my struggles. And I've been very blessed with that. And it's just, it's never easy, and you just kind of learn to deal with it not being easy. And you just don't sweat the small stuff a lot of times. You just, it'll work out. We'll figure it out. Right now, I might not have the answer, but, we'll figure it out. So, it's just little things that always come up. And sometimes there's a million little things that try to knock you down. And sometimes it's a kid going into cardiac arrest. That's a big thing. Okay. And
Right.
You just learn to deal with issues. And I think that's what experience is. And, it's just like when you're young, everything's a big issue. And the older you get, you're like, man, that's just not that big of a deal. And it's just because you've dealt with things. So, but there's a lot of things that you just learn to deal with, but you got to learn to deal with the things, by being prepared mentally for lightning strikes. You can't stop it. There might be a storm on the horizon that's coming your way, but it's more about being mentally ready to deal with crap that is going to hit you, and it's just, you don't know what it is, but it's like, when it hits, I'm not going to freak out. And, those are things that you learn over years of coaching.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're more interested in the process and developing players and seeing them grow and succeed beyond the court. And probably that sums up your coaching philosophy. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah. I mean, it'd be great to be that guy that's the all-time winningest, whatever. And sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. But what's more important to me is if I get a text or a call from a player, 10 years down the road, and they're like, "Coach, I love you," and that's something that to me is more important than any win. And the other thing is, like, even if a guy doesn't call me, but I know he's doing well, and it's such a competitive thing that sometimes, we don't get that relationship that we necessarily want with people, because I need them to do something and I'm going to demand they do something. And sometimes, we just, maybe I lost a guy out down the way or something, or along the way, that just, it's like, man, that guy doesn't want to talk anymore. And I'm like, okay, but as long as that person is going down the path to be a better father, a community leader, and understands the value of hard work and in relationship, I'm okay with it. Okay. And it's just something, but I don't know how many guys have graduated now, probably over 60 or 70 guys here in this program. And that's what I'm most proud of, because once you get that degree, it just gets them down that path of going somewhere that they're going to be a leader. And it's always going to be, this program helped them become that person. And that's something that I'm very proud of.
Wonderful. Now, this might be a little bit of a tough question. Can you tell us about a standout player who exemplifies your, those values of your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, I give you a whole bunch of them. It's just, I'm gonna look around my office here and see it. Just one guy that maybe sticks out. Okay, yeah, without doubt. Year one, I took over the program, and I remember I went up. We had a kid named Darius Brents, and Darius was out of the worst part of Detroit that you've ever seen in your life. And I got the job, and I said I'm going to go meet with him. And so I called him up, and I said, hey, I'm up in Detroit area. I want to come meet you. And this is 2009 in the spring, and you remember like 2008 was like the housing crisis. By 2009. Right. I mean, Detroit was decimated. And I'm not kidding you when I said, when I drove, he's like, Coach, you should not meet me at my house. And I said, it's like 3:00 in the afternoon. Like, what's wrong? So I said, I'm going to come get you. So he told me the address. I drove down his street. And I mean, I'm talking one of these old, 1930s, 1940s, 1950s streets where there's houses upon houses upon houses upon houses for miles. And, every house on that street was either foreclosed on, was boarded up, halfway burnt down, a drug house. And I pull up to his, and there's some electricity on. And I just was like, there's a light on in the porch. It was the only house I saw on the street that was that way. And I was like, so I picked him up, and we went to get some lunch, and I remember going to a Wendy's. It was kind of, maybe a mile and a half away. And then I'm like, I got to drop you off, and he's like, Coach, I wouldn't do that. I said, I'm going to drop you off at your house. And then he's like, whatever you do, Coach, just get out of there as quickly as you can. So that's his background. Okay. And he didn't have a dad in his life. Most of the 95% of the guys that I recruit have a dad in their life. That tells you something. Okay. But he didn't. And I remember when he got done playing for me, he had like 2 classes that he had to take to graduate. And I'm like, you're going to come back and you're going to finish those classes. And he didn't have any money, and I was like, I don't care how much it costs, whatever, you're going to take those classes, you're going to graduate. And he didn't take them right away. And he, just was kind of floundering around from job to job, but he came back like 2.5 years later, and he took the classes and he graduated. And honestly, like, I didn't talk to him for about, I don't know, 12 years. Okay. I'd see him at a game every now and then, but like, we'd play up in Detroit and I'd see him, and how's everything going? Good. Okay. So I didn't even know where like he was working and all that stuff, but I just knew he got his degree. So fast forward, it's 2019, right before COVID, and I'm buying a house here in Ashland, and I need a loan. And I call up, I'm calling around, pricing around. I call up Quicken Loans, and I just said, hey, listen, I don't want to BS around. I said, just give me your best price and all that stuff for a mortgage rate. And the lady on the phone is like, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your job? And I said, well, I'm a college basketball coach. And she's like, oh, where? And I go, Ashland University. And she goes, Ashland University? I said, yeah. She goes, let me put my boss on the phone. I said, what? And all of a sudden I hear, Coach. I'm like, Darius Brents, what are you doing, man? He goes, I'm in charge of this at Quicken Loans and all that other stuff. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And he was like a regional manager type of thing.
That's awesome.
And he's telling me that, he's like, yeah, I got my mom. He was living with his mom and like 2 sisters in that house in that one street. And I said, well, where are you living at? He goes, I bought a house out in the suburbs. My mom, my sisters are out there. And he just goes, Coach, I love you. And he goes, I'm going to take care of you. And I think about that.
Wow.
That's bigger than any win I've ever had.
Absolutely.
And it's just, that what he, you think about it, and he just, where he came from, what he had to overcome, what he didn't know that he needs to know back as a young man, and why those 2 classes, it might have cost him like $2,000 to take at the time or something. And it was like, just take it. It'll be worth it. And it's just like those 2 classes, he took them and he got his family. He saved his family, and it's just like that to me is a great story. And there's hundreds of stories from players that I've coached that each one of them has overcome stuff. But that's one that just sticks out to me that, I'm like, man, that's coaching right there.
Yeah. Wow. That warms the heart. And those are the moments that you really remember and stick with you, really, not the scores, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow. I guess it's kind of hard to move to some of the other questions we had were a little more upbeat, if you will, but that's to change tones a little bit. That was a really amazing story. That's like something out of a movie. You know what I mean?
It was unreal. It was unreal. Like, and it was just, I didn't expect for him to be on the phone. She's like, "Oh, let me put my boss on the phone," and it's like, there's that kid, that like I just didn't know what he was doing. So, it's just, it's just what our guys do. It's like, we had a kid that chose to come here over a lot of big time D1 schools. Okay. Paul Honiford was his name, and Paul was a great player for us and a huge recruit. I mean, he had offers his junior year from like Michigan State, Big Ten schools. And then like by the end of it, it was like all these MAC schools. Like he could have gone to any MAC school, which is like Toledo, Miami of Ohio, Ohio University, any of them. And, for us to get him was a huge deal. And that everyone was like, I can't believe like Ashland D2 got this kid over Toledo, over Bowling Green, over everybody. It's like, how did that happen? And the reason was because Paul's biggest thing was he wanted to be a vet. He wanted to go to Ohio State veterinary school. Okay. And he's like, "Coach," he's like, "if I come to Ashland, can you guys get me to Ohio State vet school?" And I was like, "Well, your top priority here is that." And I said, "I don't care if you play basketball or not," but I just said, like, if that's what you want to do, that's what you're going to do here. And literally, like, after the visit, he calls me up 20 minutes after he visited and says, "I'm coming to Ashland." I said, "You got to be kidding me."
Wow.
And I was like, "Well, all right, yeah." And the reason was because all of those D1 schools, it was a business. Basketball is the top priority. And he's like, "I don't think I could be, he goes, "I don't think I would be able to take the classes that they want him to be a basketball player. I want him to be a vet." And, and you're talking about a kid like before the game, we're dressing, he's looking over note cards, over some class he's got to take in biology or physics or something like that. Just straight A kid. And,
awesome.
he's a vet now, and it's like, well, he did
wow.
what he wanted to do. So, it's just finding those type of kids, they're out there, and it's just, don't settle for guys who, it's all about basketball all the time. It's just not, it just doesn't work out. Never does.
Very good. Very good. A lot of words of wisdom, John.
Yeah.
So no doubt, you've made a significant impact at Ashland University. And if there was a Coach Ellenwood Day celebration, what unique or quirky tradition would you want to be part of the celebration?
First, I wouldn't want there to be a Coach Ellenwood Day. I just
come on, that'd be fun.
I just, what's the tradition? Maybe they have to go to an F3 workout. They got to get up at 5:15, and you know what day it's going to be? Like January. It's going to be like January 14th on a Monday or something like that, or whatever. It's going to be Coach Ellenwood Day, and everybody's got to get up at 5:15 and get there because that's tough to do. I would like for people to just, just understand that they're appreciated. And, I think that's the biggest thing is if there was ever a day just where everybody would have to go to somebody that they work with and just say, thank you for being, who you are. And I really appreciate, because I know like everybody here does really hard things and they do them gleefully. And that's the thing with our university that's just unbelievable, is just the sacrifices people make to help people. But I just would like people to get appreciated. I really would. It's like everybody here could, it's just makes this place special. And I think that's what I would want more than anything else. It just go to somebody that's a coworker, or if you're an administrator, go to the people that work for you. But just say, like, or even to your bosses or whatever, just say, thank you. I appreciate you. Here's why. And that's all I'd want.
Wow. Very good.
How long have you lived in Ashland? Was it just when you got the
right when I got the job? Yeah. We've had 2 houses here. But I was talking about this literally yesterday with my wife, and I just said, I grew up in Sylvania, Ohio, which is on the border of Toledo and Michigan, like right over there, Northwest Ohio. But I had not been back there. Like, I went back a week ago to Sylvania to help my parents out. But my parents kind of have 2 houses now, that, like, one's more of a retirement place that they're at more, and then the house in Sylvania, they're just kind of growing out of. And I told my wife, I said, I feel like that's not my hometown anymore, and I just said, I feel like Ashland is my hometown, and I love it here. This place really has grown on me. It seems like there's a parade in downtown every other week now, and it's a lot of fun. I was just in the St. Patty's parade, where we all marched down to the creek and turn that creek into Green Creek or whatever it is. But I just think this town has got so much character and personality. My kids are very much involved in this community. I've gotten to know people, and I love the people that I've met here. They're very genuine, from you guys. Kai and your dad, I think he's one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. And I never would have thought that until I started knowing it.
Certainly, yeah.
Like,
Renaissance man.
But it's just like, I feel like this is a town where it's very intimate relationships. And that's important, because everybody wants to get lost in these big cities and big areas, but it's getting to know people at a very a level of like, them, what is important to them, it's that intimacy of conversations. And it's I think that's missing a lot of other places. And I know from where I've been as a coach, just traveling around, and finally getting roots into a place. This place is special, and I'm very happy to have lived here for as long as I have. And I'm glad my kids were raised here, and that's probably the most important thing to me.
Wow, that's very powerful, John. What's one thing that you enjoyed doing in Ashland? Maybe you could
Sure.
share that with people who say, Ashland is so small, there's not much to do here. What's one thing that you enjoy so much, especially with your family?
Well, my family is just going to their events. Okay. And my kids are involved in everything from plays to sports, you name it. But to me, it's like, the weekends downtown, like, downtown's become awesome. And it's just a very great small downtown. It's great. But like, this past winter, I remember we got home from a game, and they were doing, I think it was like at the start of December, and they had the Christmas parade day, so we literally got home from the game. I went, they had the parade just starting out in Claremont, and I walked out there, and just seeing people and just like how friendly this town is unbelievable. And then they, like, across from my house is near Freer Field, which is where the Balloon Fest is and all that stuff.
Right.
And they started that Candy Cane Train or Candy Cane Lane place, where they lit up a half a mile through the woods with music and all that stuff. I'm like, our town has become a Hallmark town. Like when you watch those Hallmark movies, that's what Ashland's become. And it's like, and I'm looking around, I'm like, nobody's got it better than us. Nobody has it better. I mean, it's just the high spirit of going downtown. And like, you might go to, if you want to call it bar hopping or whatever it is, but like, you might go from Uniontown to Ohio Fire to the Well, or you go from place to place, and you're just seeing people, and it's just, everything's real friendly, and it just feels awesome. it's just like, man, this is like, you joyful. And then, you might go out during the mornings, like I said, I'm going to go meet some guys that I'm friends with. We're going to go work out and, maybe get coffee afterwards or something and just shoot the breeze. And but there's always something going on when you stay here. It just grows on you because people will invite you in. And if you let that happen, this is a great small town. And it's just, the love of this community has just gotten so much better. And I've seen that from when I got here to now. It has grown in that area. And that's something that's phenomenal. Just the hometown feel here is great.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I got here in Ashland back in 2010, I didn't think I was going to last here longer than 6 months.
Yeah.
But 14 years later, I'm here. So
Yeah.
it grows on you. It does.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And, it's just like, I remember we went out to your house for a fire, and it was and it was, it just like you get to know that area of the town. And like, I think there's some balloons that were landing in the field or something.
That's true. Yeah. I remember that day. Yeah. That was interesting.
But it's like you remember those things and those are special moments and you don't realize it, but I'm like, that doesn't like, nothing was planned, but something great happens. That's kind of the way Ashland is. So,
interesting.
And it's just, I think it's a great, like, just to have a university of our caliber here in a small town. It just how it interacts with the town and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. It's just a great place to be. So, and I always joke because you drive by on the expressway and you're like, all this great stuff is just off this exit that everybody drives by every single day. And
it's one exit on 71. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, so then I drive by other exits at other places and I'm like, gosh, I wonder what's like 2 miles down the road that way at that town. If it's like Ashland or, it's just a neat thing to, it's kind of hidden and I'm okay with that sometimes. So.
Yeah. Well, okay. Last question, John.
Sure.
What advice do you have for young athletes dreaming of playing college basketball?
Oh, okay. That's kind of loaded. I don't want to get in the woods with that one. Just the basketball, like I said, just understand that college sports, especially basketball, it is not going to be Disney World. It is going to be hard work. And if you want to be a part of that team, you got to fight for every inch of playing time and things like that. And it's not, it's just something that you got to be okay. You got to be okay with the amount of effort that you got to put into it. And it's not going to be easy. And I think a lot of people get here and they like, I always say there's 3 lions that you have to learn to tame. There's the academic lion, which is going from high school to college.
Right.
You have to learn to go from homework to study. And that's something you have to learn to communicate with your professors. You got to learn to ask for help. I think a lot of people don't know how to ask for help. And that's something that they struggle with. That's the first line. The second line is the sport line or basketball line for me, of just going from the top of that mountain back down. And then you got to work your way back up. Some people are able to do it right away. Very few. And, but some people, it's just a lot of work and you got to be okay with that. And it's just, again, ask for help. And then, the third thing to me is a social life lion, and you got a lot more freedom. And with that freedom, you got to make good decisions and make sure that you're around people that are going to help you make good decisions. So that's the advice I have, of just be prepared to tame those 3 lions. And if you're, when you go from your freshman year where you don't know there's lions in there to the time you're a senior and you got those lions doing backflips and you got it tamed, it's just a journey that you got to enjoy. And it's not going to be like getting on, a ride at Disney World and all that stuff. It's not. It's going to be a journey where there's going to be hours of boredom, and there's going to be moments of sheer terror, and you got to be okay with that and just deal with the issues, ask for help, and just understand that no matter what you go through, it can be overcome, and your attitude will make that decision for you.
I love that lion metaphor. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your wisdom, for your generosity with your time. And we learned so much, John. Appreciate you, and we're very, very fortunate to have you here at Ashland University.
Well, thank you guys, and thank you for being great friends.
Thank you for tuning in to the WoW podcast, where curiosity meets inspiration. Brought to you by the Writing and Communication Center at Ashland University.